Well, good morning and welcome to 755 Live, about 5 minutes of what Jesus said. You can find a different command of Jesus every day at our weekday Bible plan at bible.today.church, 5-day week plan, really simple to follow. I would encourage you to check that out. Today's Jesus said is from Matthew 10:28. And it says, "Fear God, not people." As we were praying this morning during the early morning prayer time, we talked about this. And these Jesus says are planned in advance, but we really need to hear this in light of what's going on in the world today. Jesus said in Matthew 10:28, "Don't be afraid of those who want to kill your body. They cannot touch your soul. Fear only God, who can destroy both soul and body in hell." The word that Jesus uses there for fear in the Greek is the word from which we get phobia, phobeo, a fear that causes you to run from what you're afraid of. In fact, the literal definition of that word says to put to flight by terrifying. And Jesus is saying, don't let man cause you to run in fear. Don't be terrified by what man can do, but instead fear God. Well, what does the fear of God look like? Well, it's not terrifying, but it is to act in response to what God says rather than what our circumstances or what man says. In the context here in Matthew, in verse 16, Jesus says that we're going to be sheep among wolves, and he tells us to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. In that context, he said that we would be arrested, that we would stand trial, that we would be persecuted, that we would be beaten in the synagogues. I mean, it's not a very pleasing picture of what Jesus is saying, but he's saying within that, this will be your testimony. This will be your opportunity to spread good news. Verse 26, he says, "Don't be afraid of those who threaten you, but instead," in verse 27, "shout it from the housetops. What he has told you in private, shout in public." So don't be afraid of what man can do to us. Don't be afraid of what government can impose. Don't be afraid of those who can destroy things that are physical, but instead fear God and shout from the housetops what Jesus has declared and what Jesus has revealed to us. That's how we respond as Jesus said, rather than responding to the circumstances in our life. Jesus didn't say, if you follow me, everything's going to get better. He said, if you follow me, you're going to have some trouble. You're going to have difficulty, but be of good cheer, for he has overcome the world. And it's in that knowledge and in that understanding that we can not worry about what those can do to us, or those who can do things physically to us, those who can take things away from us. That's not who we fear, and that's not who we run from, terrified. We don't have phobias like the rest of the world. We stand on the truth of God's word. And if God is for us, then who can be against us? So it's not a time to cower in fear. It is a time to stand up and proclaim from the rooftops, from the mountaintops, be a light shining in the darkness, that what Jesus said is more important than anything else. And we don't live in fear. We don't live terrified of what the world is terrified of. We live in fear of God, obeying his commands. And we understand who God is because of what Jesus said. And he said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And we will stand not in fear, but in faith, proclaiming the good news of Jesus Christ, no matter what the circumstances are. So Jesus said, don't be afraid. Don't fear circumstances. Fear God, not people. How can we put that into action today?